If you couldn't tell already from the craziness of this year's NCAA men's basketball tournament, it's March. And during this time of year, anything, and I mean anything, can happen. This year, we've already witnessed 16-seed FDU take down 1-seed Purdue in a true David versus Goliath story, as well as a few other upsets from squads like Princeton and Furman, which shook up the nation and ruined the brackets of millions.
One thing you can always be certain about with this tournament is that mayhem will occur. And over the years, we've seen this time and time again. With that being said, let's go back and take a look at some of the all-time greatest bracket busters in the history of March Madness. From miracle upsets to Cinderella stories, we've got it all in this week's edition of Top 10.
At the 10th spot in our most unbelievable March Madness stories of all time, we've got 10-seed Davidson's 2008 Elite 8 run. The unlikely win streak by the SoCon champion Wildcats would not only leave the world in shock, but also in awe, as a young Steph Curry would deliver a sneak peek of his legendary career. The 6'3" sharpshooting guard was unconscious from the three-point line for the Cats, hitting a tournament record 5.75 threes per game. Davidson started its run against Gonzaga, and the game quickly became Chef Curry's coming-out party as he cooked up a 40-piece with 30 in the second half, all en route to a W. And an even bigger shocker, Curry delivered again 2 nights later with 30 and 5 against 2-seed as the Wildcats would move on to the Sweet 16 after rallying back from being down 17. In the final win of this remarkable streak, Curry would once again go berserk, dropping 33 on 3-seed Wisconsin. His phenomenal performance earned him tons of new fans, including LeBron James, who applauded Curry courtside and what we can now look at as a preview of one of the modern NBA's greatest rivalries. The Wildcats' magic would eventually die off in a nail-biting 2-point loss in the Elite 8 against eventual champion Kansas, even though Curry would still drop 25. Overall, the shocking run by Davidson would not only give the mid-major Cats their best season of all time, but also gave the world a preview of the player who would change the game forever.
Coming in at number 9, we take our attention to the first 15 seed in tournament history to make it into the Elite 8. The St. Peter's Peacocks entered the 2022 NCAA tournament as a plus 1,400 underdog to the Kentucky Wildcats, a perennial contender and one of the top blue blood programs in the country. Coach Calipari and company were stunned in the round of 64 by the small college from New Jersey, led by 27 points from sophomore guard Daryl Banks and 20 points from tournament favorite Doug Eater. St. Peter's pulled off the improbable upset, coming back from a 6-point deficit with 3 minutes left in the second half to push the game into overtime, before ultimately sealing the deal and securing an 85-79 victory. The Peacocks would continue to dance in the round of 32, knocking off 7-seeded Murray State in a hard-fought 70-60 win that would send the team into the Sweet 16. St. Peter's faced off against 3-seeded Purdue, and at plus 600 odds to win outright, the Peacocks were once again big underdogs. St. Peter's battled for 40 minutes in a back-and-forth affair and took a 67-64 lead with 4.1 seconds remaining. The team held their breath one last time as Jaden Ivey let a deep 3 fly with time expiring, but the shot was wide and the team rejoiced as they would cement themselves in tournament history as the highest-seeded team to ever reach the Elite 8. Unfortunately, the Cinderella story would end with a 20-point loss to North Carolina, but it would not overshadow an amazing run from Coach Holloway and the rest of his guys.
At number 8, we have the 2013 Florida Gulf Coast squad, which would pull off 2 wild upsets in the big dance to make the Sweet 16. The 15-seed Eagles were nicknamed Dunk City during the regular season, thanks to their high-flying aerial offensive attack. Led by a Sun Conference Player of the Year, Sherwood Brown, and athletic forward Chase Feeler, FGCU continued this style of play in the tournament and would jam their way past highly touted 2-seed Georgetown. The Eagles would stay in flight against San Diego State in the next round with several show-stopping slams, including a few hammers from sophomore Eric McKnight. In the Sweet 16, the Eagles would finally fail to use their athleticism to get the victory, as their cross-state rival Florida Gators would knock FGC out in Dallas before getting bounced by Michigan in the following game.
In the 7th spot, we travel back to the 2012 tournament where the 15-seeded Lehigh Mountain Hawks entered the round of 64 as double-digit underdogs to the 2-seeded Duke Blue Devils. Now a seasoned NBA veteran, this game would introduce many basketball fans to CJ McCollum, who played 39 minutes and led the team in scoring with 30 points en route to a stunning 75-70 victory over the likes of Austin Rivers and Mason Plumlee. At the time, Lehigh became just the 6th 15 seed to beat a 2 seed in tournament history. It was an electric game from start to finish, featuring 7 ties and 8 lead changes in just the first half of play. The second half was more of the same, but with under 9 minutes left to play, Lehigh guard Mackie McKnight would splash a 3 to give Lehigh a 50-49 lead, a lead they ultimately would never give up. On the back of McCollum, the team would control the game with their physical play and clutch free throw shooting to close out an historic upset and send Lehigh to the round of 32.
Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders, who entered March Madness as 17-point underdogs against the red-hot Michigan State Spartans, fresh off a Big Ten title. Both offenses were firing, as the over in this game smacked in regular time, with 171 points scored by the two teams within regulation. However, despite valiant efforts from Michigan State's Marcus Costello, who dropped 22, and Big Ten Player of the Year Denzel Valentine, who had 13 and 12, Middle Tennessee's offense was even hotter. Every Blue Raider starter would end up having double-digit points, while the underdogs would also end the game shooting a scorching 58% from 3. The offensive explosion from MTSU's entire team, led by star senior Reggie Upshaw with 22 points, would ultimately prove to be enough to beat Michigan State 90-81, and also gave legendary coach Tom Izzo one of the most embarrassing losses of his career. Even though MTSU would end up getting crushed by Illinois in the round of 32, this upset certainly deserves a spot in the top March storylines of all time.